4 new presbyters for the Holy Land. Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa presided over the ordination rite of 4 new priests at the Domus Galilaeae. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. In Gaza, with streets covered in rubble and houses destroyed, the pontifical missions in Jerusalem are carrying out generous and essential work. Jesus in Agony, a holy hour for peace. In the Basilica of the Agony at Gethsemane, a holy hour took place in which, in silence, the Latin Catholics of Jerusalem implored the Lord, presenting the pain of so many suffering brothers and sisters in Gaza, the West Bank, Palestine, and Israel. The Jalluf twins, Syrian Franciscans, ordained priests on the same day. Brother Johnny and Brother George Jalluf, Franciscan friars but also twin brothers, received priestly ordination on the same day in their home parish in Aleppo. Bethany, a history to be preserved. Teenagers at school for archaeology. In Bethany, the association Pro Terra Santa promoted an experimental archaeology course involving some 15 local teenagers between the ages of 12 and 17. In December 2023, 4 seminarians from Redemptoris Mater in Galilee received the diaconate through the laying on of hands of His Beatitude Pierbattista Pizzaballa, Patriarch of Jerusalem of the Latins, on the 28th of June 2024, after a time of service and mission in the midst of God's holy people, Ruben Cabrera Rosique, Spanish, Kasper Jurik, Polish, Roman Savluk, Ukrainian, and Giovanni Bovi, Italian, were ordained priests in the Catholic Church. Cardinal Pizzaballa presided over the ordination rite during a Eucharistic celebration. The ceremony took place in the Domus Galilaeae and was attended by hundreds of faithful from all over the Holy Land, dozens of priests, and several bishops. This included Monsignor Musa Al-Hajj of the Maronite Church, in which the newly ordained Father Giovanni Bovi will exercise his ministry. An important characteristic of the Redemptoris Mater Seminary in Galilee, in fact, is that the seminarians come from different rites. In view of the plurality of the Church in the Holy Land, the charisma of the neo-catechumenal way is to serve all ecclesial expressions. They do this by forming priests who know how to give themselves to the full, responding in the most appropriate way to the needs of all the churches. We are providing this service not only to the Latin Church, but also to the Eastern churches, that is, a seminary open to the rites. Although vocations come from the catechumenal path, they are all for the Church. Who is responsible for this? Who carries this forward? It is the bishop. The Church of the Holy Land is a very colourful church. There are so many charisms, so many forms of presence, both religious and consecrated, lay people, movements, and so on. We have the neo-catechumenal way, which also has a Redemptoris Mater seminary that brings vocations to the life of the diocese, but also to the missions scattered around the world, because a good number are already scattered around the world. And they are truly under the obedience of the Patriarch. Some he sent on missions, for example, to the Gulf. He sent them to Africa. He has also sent them to Europe. It is a church here that also has in itself the solicitude of all churches, as Mary had it. With John Paul II, the neo-catechumenal way had the intuition to form itinerant priests willing to accompany and serve families on mission in the most de-Christianized places on earth, so that everywhere there may be a discreet and eloquent church presence. Speaking to the people's hearts through the example of humble and generous families who bear simple witness to God's action in their lives. Today is a festive day, a big day of celebration. Why? Because we witness the ordination of 4 presbyters. This is an enormous grace, because presbyters are needed for the new evangelization to form Christian communities. Here, that, as we have received, live in humility, simplicity, and praise, and where they can discover that the other, the brother, is Christ.
In Palestine, as in the Holy Land, as in the world, there is a need to testify that God exists, that God is present in people's lives, that He is able to save people's lives from oblivion or loneliness, from death, and to rebuild life in any situation. We came into the community together with catechesis. I have known him since we were children. It is very important to see him here because for me, you can see how God works in his life and how he works.
We are 11 children. My parents left their country, Poland, to go on mission in Kazakhstan. I saw for many years how he had this battle between being a priest or not being a priest, whether it was his way or not. But in the end, today, I see Kasper completely different. I see that it is his choice and that he is very happy. That, for me, is the important thing. For me, it is a beautiful sign.
Bellissimo.
I'm from Galilee, from the first community of Shefamer. So one of the brothers of my community is being a priest today. I'm very happy to see also his way, where he came from, and the way he grew in the community, and now he became a priest, and what he became, what he was, and the things he accomplished, and with the community, not alone.
Faith is a gift from God that is given to us through baptism and grows with the sacraments and in participation in the life of the Church, which is an entirely sacramental life. Newly ordained priests who come from a faith experience lived in small communities are clear that they would not have reached this stage of their Christian life without the help of their brothers. Those brothers and sisters who over the years have supported them both prayerfully and materially. Brothers and sisters who have known them for many years and with whom they have shared and continue to share the experience of being, always and above all, disciples of the Lord Jesus. This is the great novelty that is the path, that is, to unite seminary training with belonging to a community that does a process that is fundamental today, a journey of faith. First of all, I am happy because I have truly seen that the Lord has passed by here today. On the other hand, I am not worthy to be here. Truly, it is a work of the Lord, which He has done with my family, with my history, through the seminary over so many years. Yes, I am very happy, and I encourage everyone to do God's will, which is the most beautiful and most important thing one can do. In the midst of scenes of devastation and the scars of conflict, such as streets covered in rubble and destroyed homes, the hand of the pontifical mission in Jerusalem reached out with generosity and compassion to help the weakest and most vulnerable in society, who are children. Today we are facing a real famine because since the beginning of the war we are experiencing difficult circumstances that seriously affect children. We have lost so many children. I personally lost my loved ones to hunger. There was no water, no food, and not even milk for the children. The drought spread throughout the region, and unfortunately the media did not report the whole truth. That many children died at home from hunger and their families could not help them. We have gone through difficult situations because of the intensity of the bombing and destruction. We no longer knew where to go or what to feed our children. I have been feeding my children wild herbs like mallow, and we have to wean them early on, seeing them face very difficult problems and illnesses. Since the war began on the 7th of October, churches in Gaza have become places of refuge for displaced people. The pontifical delegation, in coordination with partner organizations, is committed to providing everything necessary to protect human dignity. Despite the devastation, the displaced have not lost hope of returning home. They cling to faith and they put their hope in God. We are here in the Church of San Porfirio in the north of the Gaza Strip. It is worth remembering that since the beginning of the war, there have been many events here. Our church was bombed, and we lived in this church, Muslims and Christians together, not just Christians. It is important to remember that organizations have not stopped providing aid. The pontifical mission, in cooperation with numerous organizations, has been able to support us since the beginning of the war, and this is what we appreciate. Since the beginning of the war, the pontifical mission has continued to support us through material aid such as food parcels, medicine, and drinking water. The situation, especially in northern Gaza, is very tragic. There is a lack of food and water, so when we received information from our partners that we could provide meals to hundreds of thousands of people, we moved immediately. And thank God, this time, we were able to provide meals to about 1,000 people in northern Gaza, and the number is small for the people there, but at least these are available. In addition to food shortages due to the border closure, people have also put up with rising prices for basic foodstuffs. We thank the pontifical delegation for the contributions and donations that have supported us, thanking God as in answer to our prayers. They have sent us everything possible. One thank you is not enough. We pray and hope that the war will end quickly. Its effects also extend to the West Bank and Jerusalem. The unemployment rate in Bethlehem has increased significantly, mainly because workers cannot go to work in Jerusalem after their permits have been revoked. This greatly exacerbates the difficulties of families in the West Bank. We are currently trying to intervene as simply as possible in the Bethlehem and Jerusalem area. Our message to all our young people, women and families is to stand firm. God willing, we will soon reach a solution that will guarantee a decent life for our families, friends and colleagues.
يوفر الحياة كريمة لأهالينا ولأصحابنا ولزملائنا.
Jesus Christ says, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me into your home. The pontifical mission responds to this call. Christianity is the experience of a presence that runs through history and illuminates it. The living Jesus Christ, present in the Eucharist, is the crucified and risen Lord who heals with his glorious wounds the wounds of a world destroyed by sin. The whole Church of Jerusalem adores and implores him in the Gethsemane of this difficult time for the Holy Land. The Patriarch of Jerusalem and the Brothers of the Basilica of the Agony, together with a small group of lay people and religious, live a holy hour. In silence, with Christ, they present to the Father all the pain of their brothers in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Palestine and Israel, the pain of children who suffer bombardment, who do not know how to love, who do not know how to open themselves to the grace of forgiveness and peace. On the night of the 4th of July, Catholics pray in the Basilica of Agony because the Church knows that Christ's prayer is heard by the Father, and God is sensitive to the cry of his children who implore him in his Son. All Christians are called to join in this vigil so that our night, which is history, may finally discover itself redeemed by the presence of the one who, by his shining, has overcome the darkness of the world. And may brothers and sisters no longer hate each other, but accept the Father who in Jesus Christ has made us children and does not want anyone to be lost, but rather for every man and woman on this earth to find life, resurrection, and peace in him. The twin brothers George and Johnny Jalouf are Franciscan friars minor of the custody of the Holy Land. Known for their availability to all, during their years of preparation for the priesthood, they lived their Franciscan charism among young people. They animated the liturgy in the holy places and lived with a generous and humble spirit the extraordinary service that the Church asks of all the friars of the custody. That is, to guard and support above all the living stones of the Church of the Holy Land. Last July the 6th, in Aleppo, Syria, their home country, these two young friars were ordained priests by the laying on of hands by Monsignor Hanna Jalouf, Apostolic Vicar of Aleppo of the Latins. He's also the uncle of the two newly ordained brothers. The ordination rite was held at the parish of St. Francis in Aleppo, where the twins grew up as children. The vicar of the custody, Brother Ibrahim Faltas, who presented the candidates, was present together with some discretaries of the custody of the Holy Land and representing the entire community of friars. The friars of the Syrian communities and representatives of the other Christian churches of Syria were also present. Great was the emotion of the relatives, friends, and many who know the Jalouf twins. They recognize in their ordination to the priesthood, which comes 17 years after their last ordination in that parish, a sign of God's love for a land like Syria, a land where faith does not die, but endures and grows in trial, bearing fruit from which the entire Church, especially the Church of the Holy Land, can benefit. In Jerusalem, in the convent of the Flagellation along the Via Dolorosa, the Terra Sancta Museum preserves and enhances the archaeological and artistic heritage of Christianity. At this moment, the museum is entering the penultimate phase of its construction to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the first refurbishment. The mission, planned in October last year, was halted due to the war, but now it has been resumed with all the cooperation and commitment of the Italian team of architects from northern Italy and the company Lamparredo SRL. 100 years later, a much, much larger, much more up-to-date museum is finally opening for a wider public, with a narrative that we believe continues to be interesting, fascinating, and has a very specific character, that is to describe, to narrate, to help understand the history of Christianity in this land. The Archaeological Museum, according to Daniela Massara, curator of the archaeological collections, has precisely this objective of helping people to identify with events, especially in the life of Jesus, but also in biblical history.
And in this sense, the room we are in now, which is dedicated to Father Sylvester Saller, a great Franciscan archaeologist, American, is precisely focused on the holy places.
Along the way, the visitor will find gospel quotations, archaeological remains from all places, such as the Holy Sepulchre, archaeological remains from the time of Constantine, which are also found there. The director of works and planner, Giovanni, highlights that they also tell the story of destruction, of fury against this building. And this is interesting because this story also needs to be told and made to be understood. In the new rooms of the upper floor there will be a wall full of epigraphs to tell the story of the ancient languages of the Holy Land.
Thus, also giving precisely the sense of the richness of the now century-old collections of the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum and the custody of the Holy Land in general. Even this museum, in its renovation phase, set up on 4 August 1924, there is a plaque at the entrance to the museum commemorating this date. So it is a kind of centenary for us too.
Quindi anche per noi è una sorta di centenario fra poco più di un mese.
And speaking of the centenary of the Tabor and Gethsemane basilicas, the team tried to present the objects in such a way as to make the past of these places somewhat known.
Per ora rimane un po' ancora dietro le quinte, ma esporremo una vetrina.
For now, it is still somewhat behind the scenes, but we will display a completely new showcase with artifacts from the latest excavations in front of the Church of Gethsemane. with some material from, for example, a first-century ritual bath, which is one of the very rare testimonies in that area of the activities that took place at that time.
Testimonianze in quell'area delle attività.
Work is progressing at full speed thanks to the financial support of Pro Terra Santa, which is subsidizing the project. Once this session is over, the aim is to set up the room dedicated to Capernaum, then other rooms dedicated to, for example, Bethany and other small holy places, and finally with showcases focusing on the collections. We were able to put a lot of things in a small place and imagine a route that still ends at the beginning, at the entrance where the ticket office is, where there is an explanation, so one takes a circular route and still retraces one's steps. A museum that also shows us artifacts of Judaic, Arab and Syrian culture, with testimonies always collected through Franciscan friars or private donations. What strikes architect Giovanni is precisely the location of the museum, because in itself it tells part of the story. To have a museum on the site of the Praetorium of Pilate's time, where Christ was judged and scourged, is something exceptional. The route is always full of surprises, of spaces that are small, narrow, bright, dark, and this continues to increase the public's interest and surprise. All hope that peace will return to the Holy Land, and that pilgrims and visitors will return in large numbers to see with their own eyes the fragments of the history of the Holy Land and of Christianity. Open yourself to a gesture of solidarity and support the mission of the custody of the Holy Land. The Christian Media Center spreads the good news of Jesus by making known to the world the spirituality of the holy places and the lives of the Christians who live here. Your contribution will help us bring the proclamation of the risen Lord, the most urgent of all, to men and women of every language and nation. To help us concretely, open the QR code. Your choice makes a difference.